Hi, it's Sarah, and I'm back today to tell you all about the top 10 things you need to know about apraxia. So it's a really interesting disorder, and here are some of the things that I've learned about it over the years and I want you to know about. And it'll help you become a better clinician and to understand this and to treat. I also have two products that I use with students with apraxia. I've got one in Spanish. I call it my Spanish Apraxia Bible. I'll link to it below. And then my second one, my latest product is actually in English, because I normally work in Spanish because I'm a bilingual speech pathologist, but it's called Dolchwords Apraxia. I'll put a link down below too. And both products are meant to help kids with apraxia get better at producing intelligible speech. If I could produce intelligible speech, that would be amazing. But also help them learn how to read, which is where I find that kids make really rapid improvements once they start learning how to read and decoding and then kind of putting everything together. But here is what you need to know about apraxia. Number one, apraxia is a motor speech disorder. So that means that there's something happening with the motor system of a kid. And what that means, it's something to do with the coordination of all of the articulators, tongue, lips, jaw. Something is happening that makes it hard for a child with apraxia to put everything together to make a word. Number two, feeding right into that, putting sounds together is hard. So it's really hard for them to coordinate the motor movements to produce a word the way that they want to. And if you think about speech is a fine motor movement. It's an incredibly delicate thing that you have to do to make sure you're making the right sound. So, and it's also a fine motor. It's not a gross motor, which would be like jumping or running. It's a fine motor movement, similar to writing or coloring. Using your hands is a fine motor, and so is your tongue. So actually, bonus tip is that a lot of kids with apraxia also do struggle with other fine motor movements like writing. Number three. Okay, this is one that is kind of, to me, in my years doing this, kind of the hallmark of apraxia is vowel errors. So when a student makes errors producing vowels, that's pretty rare. Most of the errors that I tackle are on consonants. So when I hear a vowel error, that's when I'm going to start really thinking about considering apraxia as a diagnosis for a student. Number four, inconsistent errors. So that's another really key telling detail that apraxia might be involved. So they might say, and of course I'm thinking in Spanish here, but casa, instead of saying casa, they might say kata, or they might say caca the next time. So they're not always like saying it right. Like they're making different errors, even if you're trying to have them produce the same word or same a bunch of phonemes. They're going to make different errors. It's inconsistent. It's kind of one of those things where you're like, huh, that's so interesting. Kind of, there we go, looking at that motor system, and that's what's causing that. Number five, groping. I haven't always seen this with a lot of my clients with apraxia, but groping is something you do look for when you're considering apraxia as a diagnosis. Groping is when the articulators are trying to find a spot. So it's either, it could be like with the mouth and jaw, just kind of trying to find, so it's like this movement with your face, and if you see that, you might consider apraxia as a diagnosis. Let's see, number six, stress on the wrong syllable. So, excuse me. So if you have like a multisyllabic word, and like I said, I work in Spanish, so most of my thought process goes to like words like pelota. If you said it with a stress on a different syllable, instead of pelota, pelota, or something like that, you might be like, why is that kid doing that? I suspect apraxia. Number seven, this is kind of a sneaky one, language delay. So when you look at kids that have apraxia, oftentimes they have an expressive language delay as well. So that's I actually see language delays with a lot of kids that have any kind of sound errors. It's really hard to tackle answering questions when you know that you're going to make a mistake. So you sometimes, maybe not shut down, but you don't take as many chances when you're trying to participate verbally. So that's something to think about. If you see a kid that has a language delay and some speech sounds concerns, and along with some of these other things, it could be apraxia. Let's see, number 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Okay. Number 8, problems imitating. That is so true with kids with apraxia. It's hard for them to imitate what you're saying, and that's unusual. In speech therapy, imitation is kind of like the bedrock foundation of what we're doing to provide those models to help a kid learn. Kids with apraxia struggle to imitate. So that's going back to that motor difficulty. They're looking at you, they're trying really hard, they're trying to put their tongue in the right place, and they can't. What's so funny that I found with kids with apraxia is that sometimes after I give a model, they'll produce it incorrectly, and then later I might take that model away and they produce it better when they're not thinking about it. And that is also something to look for with a kid with apraxia. Number 9, they're so hard to understand. Kids that have apraxia are very difficult to understand. So it's more than just a single sound error. It's the whole system seems to be impacted. And number 10, oftentimes I see kids with apraxia that have intact comprehension or intact receptive language skills. So they understand everything that's happening. They just can't produce. They can't produce the right sounds. They can't answer those questions. And so you can imagine the frustration when you totally understand what's going on and you want to participate, and when you do, nobody understands you. So it's super frustrating for kids with apraxia, and I think it's a really interesting disorder, but I've definitely had success working with kids little by little, trying to connect those syllables to make words, going all the way up the ladder, if you will, from syllables to words. Actually, that's a pretty big jump for a lot of kids with apraxia. Anyway, I'd love it if you check out my resources for kids with apraxia. I'm linking to them below. The one in Spanish is the Apraxia Bible, excuse me, and the second one is the Dolch Words for Apraxia. I think they really help your students with this disorder to practice at home. And I guess that's all for today. So feel free to comment below. Let me know if you've ever worked with kids with apraxia, and I'd love to hear how you've tackled it, but please don't leave names, because we're just going to keep it kind of general and open. We don't want to release sensitive client information on YouTube. Anyway, I will talk to you later. I hope you have an awesome day, and don't forget to like and share. I appreciate it. Bye.